we've had a lot of rain, and people may not realize how much rain we have had, but why don't you tell us a little bit about what's happening?
Well, Denik, it all started August 31st. We had a great growing year. Some of the stuff was planted a bit late, but for the most part, it was a great growing year. August 31st, we had 55 millimeters of rain, and I think everybody's familiar with, they talked about a one-day record and stuff like that. But since then, we've had, to date, it's now September 29th, we're just shy. Environment Canada said 2 days ago we were 6 millimeters short of the record for September. But what they didn't say is we had 55 millimeters on August the 31st. So in fact, we're 50 millimeters over an all-time record from August 31st till September 29th, which is a 30-day period. 55 millimeters, and that was basically the first heavy rain we had. The ground can absorb that, but we got pounded several more times after that. And it was just deceiving because a lot of my good friends I talk to, they see a day it's not raining, and they think, oh, everything's going good. But lots of those nights we had an inch and a half of rain, and it just mounted and to extremes I've never seen.
So flooding, lots of flooding in local fields?
Lots of flooding, more waterlogged than flooding. I mean, I think people, when they see flooding, they look to what happened in Port Hardy 3 or 4 days ago on the top end of the island. We got the same weather system here, but it disperses better over flat farmland. So flooding or where the ground reaches a saturation point, that's what we have.
So what does it mean for our local crops when the water can't be absorbed and it's waterlogged?
Go ahead, Bill.
Well, once the potatoes get laying into water, a potato is a living plant, and so what we call the lenticels is where they take in the oxygen. Once that is cut off, the potato will start to deteriorate and will start to break down. And that's what we're starting to see happen in a big way now, especially in a lot of the fields that have had standing water or water that was standing and is now dissipated into the soil, which is the deceiving factor, is that when you drive by some fields today, you would say, what is the problem here? Why aren't the farmers out there? But try to step into the field and you would find out that you go knee deep into the loose dirt and it is totally saturated. So that's where we're at right now, is that the soil is saturated, the potatoes can't breathe, and so they're starting to break down. And it becomes an issue of when the weather is like today, which really teases the farmers because you want to be out there. It's in their blood to produce a crop and to get out there and harvest it. And it hurts a lot for them not to be able to get out there. I mean, farmers are fighters. I mean, that's why they're in this industry. They do go after everything that they produce. You put your whole heart and soul into planting it, nurturing it all summer long, and then comes harvest day. And September is a big month of harvest in Delta and throughout the Fraser Valley to harvest potatoes, beans, peas, corn, carrots, all the vegetables are really ripe in September. And it makes September a unique month of the year because it is a real rich month in the agricultural world.
Shot there, I believe, is flying over the Tsawwassen Indian Reserve looking east, and those two brown fields right in front are fields of potatoes. And anywhere you see laying water or potato fields, the grass fields won't show it because there's 6-8 inches of grass and it covers the water up. But potato fields are bare. There's rows in them. You can see the sprayer row marks. They're every 10 or 12 rows, and
you can really see it in these photos.
That's right. Yeah.
And but the fields with the grass are also have.
They're very wet. In a lot of cases, that's a cover crop planted for wildfowl, and there's water underneath that, but it doesn't show the same way as a potato field. Those are our potato fields right there. Some's harvested, some's not, but it's a total wipeout. That's 52nd Street, and for the most part, they're gone.
Yeah, so those are your fields, so you haven't really been able to harvest any of your potatoes.
Walk in there, let alone harvest.
It really is a devastating situation. You can see in these photos
here's a close-up of a field. That's that person, whoever took the pictures, standing on the road. I believe that's 64th Street, the Harris family. You can see the headland. It looks like a river, you know, and then there's the rows with standing water in them, and those fields have been like that for a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, and there's no hope.
And is most of Delta in this situation?
All of Delta's in this situation. Sumas Abbotsford is bad, but Delta's hit very hard.
And here you can see the ditch in comparison to the field, so tell us a bit about that.
Well, either the ditch came up and flowed into the field, or some of the field is going into the ditch, but you can see there's no place for the water to go. The ditch is right up to the edge of the field. And when you get that much water that quick, the pumping capacity just won't take the water away quick enough.
The method of a harvesting machine is designed that with a chain that the soil sifts through the chain and the potatoes come to the surface and get elevated in throughout and into the truck. And so with what you're seeing there and with the water, obviously you can't even get close to it. But once the water has dissipated and it's not there anymore, the soil is still in a muck state. And by it going onto the machine, even if you can get out there with the machine, you can't get the machine to work properly and separate the soil from the potatoes. And so that makes it even that much more challenging at this point.
It's much like, for people that find this hard to understand, it's much like putting flour in a sifter and throwing in 5 or 6 marbles. And when the flour is dry and then you squeeze it like this, the flour sifts through and you got your marbles left. A potato harvester operates exactly the same way. That soil has to sift through and separate the potatoes from the soil. And that's basically how a potato harvester works.
Yeah, because if you think of the wet flour going in, it's just going to get gunked up.
That's right. If you put a bunch of water on your flour and tried that, that's a mess.
Yeah, and I mean, even in terms of if you could get the machines on the fields, they wouldn't work as you just described. But even getting the machines on, it's almost like putting an elephant on quicksand.
Exactly.
I mean, they're heavy machines and they're just going to sink right in.
Right. And then if you can get out there and you passed all the hurdles up to that point and you do get the chance to do some harvest, then all of a sudden now that product, if you put it into storage, what will happen with it?
Right.
And that is an unknown at this point, is if the farmer does do everything in his power and he gets out there and he challenges it and goes for it and he gets the crop out, we don't know if it's going to survive, because how long has it been underwater? Traditionally, scientists have said that 24 hours underwater, the potato is done. It's over.
And you mentioned 10 days before, so it's certainly been longer than 24 hours.
Exactly. So there is a lot of fields out there that are at this point a complete write-off. Other fields are at the brink. But as I said earlier, farmers just don't want to hear that, really. They do want to fight it and try to get out there and try to salvage what is salvageable.
We met with some ministry officials today, and they're looking for numbers. And to put it into perspective, there's 2,400 acres of potatoes in the ground, and our best estimate, we might have a chance at 15%. So the other 85% are gone as we speak. And I'm just talking potatoes. There's a whole bunch of other crops out here. The broccoli business in Abbotsford, it's finished. It's gone. Brussels sprouts, we heard about them today. Because it's been mild, believe it or not. As wet as it's been mild. We call it the Pineapple Express, I guess. And a lot of the Brussels sprouts are starting to deteriorate and get black spots on them, and they're not going to market for, in the foreseeable future yet. My dad's the only one that he goes back a lot further than myself or my brothers do, but he said in 1920 there wasn't a kernel of grain harvested in the Delta. We harvested some grain this year in August. We haven't harvested a bit of grain since September 1st, and I know there's 300 or 400 acres of grain that are out in the Delta area. We saw some problems. 69, there was some problems, but nothing to this magnitude. Most of the people in those years got 60, 70, 80% of their crop off, but nothing to this. This is a major disaster.
So you've never seen anything like this in your lifetime?
No, and my father hasn't either.
And you talked about the acres and the area of land that's been affected, but why don't you put it into money for people? Like, how much does it take for a farmer to even plant and get to this point and then lose it? I mean, how much of an effect is that?
Well, you know, once you start in the spring, to this date, before they harvest, most farmers have close to $4,000 of input costs from start to this date.
Per acre.
And that's
Per acre.
Per acre. So that's, you know, prep for the land, the seed, the fertilizer, the chemicals if need be, you know, the cultivation, the crop nurturing, you know, the inspection program. So there's a lot put up before they even see anything in return. Some farmers out there have what we call crop insurance, but it's also only a bare bones program.
Yeah, so
Farmers have this insurance policy. It's on a per acre basis for the most part, but it's never been utilized to where we are today, that we've had this kind of a disaster. It's put into perspective for a farmer that may lose 10, 20, 30 acres so that he doesn't really lose everything, to bring it back to square one. But where we are today, we're in much greater numbers and we're in a net disaster. And so the crop insurance isn't going to even take a tip of the iceberg on this one. And so as Peter had said earlier, you know, we've met with the ministry today. We are looking to go after government to help with a disaster program, going after a program that's called Ag Recovery. So to see if we can get the province and the federal government combined to help in this situation. I mean, this is unprecedented. You know, Delta is a very rich area for farming, and you know, there's a lot of area in the province that's dependable on Delta for what we produce out here. And so, you know, we try to make it quite clear to the ministry today that we do need, it is a one-time shot. We've never had this before, as Peter had mentioned, going back to the 1920s. I mean, so a lot of us don't have much knowledge of what this is going to end up being, costing the industry, costing the consumer, agritourism, agribusiness, the spin-off effect that this is all going to take into consideration, trucking, labor, you know, it's just, once you start thinking about it and you put the dollar signs to it and your mind goes to it, it is an amazing amount of money that the general public doesn't realize how big this number is going to be. And we right now, that's our exercise, is to try to put all these numbers together, to produce this and give it to the minister to try to see what we can come up with.
and we will.
It's got to be over $25 million.
Wow.
And that's just rough numbers. We haven't even gone into, those are numbers that we can pull together very quickly. That's not even the whole industry out there. The seed industry alone is about another $3 million that's out there right now in the soil. And the spin-off of that is when you're in the seed industry, it's what the Delta farmers need next year. I provide Peter with a seed source, and he needs that to plant his next year's crop. I don't harvest this year. That's going to put him into a tailspin for next year and possibly the following year. So it's a big chain reaction that really not a lot of people have a lot of knowledge of, and it's obviously not really that important to them. But the long-term effect for agriculture in Delta is a lot more than just 1 year. There are seed farmers right here in Delta as well that produce seed right for the Delta farmers. There's seed growers in the Richmond area. There's seed growers up in Pemberton who grow the high generation stock seed that comes down, and I'm basically called as a multiplier. I take their stock and I multiply it and then produce it and sell it out to the local growers. Well, the chain has been broken. And how do we replenish that? And BC is very unique. It was that we grow a lot of different varieties here that they don't grow across Canada and they don't grow across the US. We have what they call the nugget potato, for instance, very highly recommended and very highly respected in BC. Awesome product. It's not growing anywhere else. The stock seed is in BC, the commercial industry is in BC, the chain stores handle it in BC, and so we're in a real toy what will happen if we do not get that stock seed out. As I spoke to the grower this morning who grows the high generation in Pemberton, he has yet to get his out. I've only got 20% of it out, and some of my fellow colleagues who also grow that are still in working to try to see if they can absorb and get some of that out as well. So it's a big circle that's revolving, and like I said, we are on unknown ground here.